I warmly welcome you to the virtual learning platform of the Distance Learning Institutes of University of Lagos, Nigeria. My name is Dr. Jacob Adeyanju. I facilitate EDM 321, Educational Cost and Financial Analysis. What is this course all about? This course, EDM 321, entitled Educational Cost and Financial Analysis, is one of the compulsory courses an undergraduate student must take in the Department of Educational Management before you can graduate. The course is designed to acquaint education managers under training with the fundamentals of cost concept and equip them with the necessary skills to make financial decisions in the education system. It brought out the application of the principle of cost-benefit analysis in the education sector and clearly justify why financing of education should be a joint responsibility of all the stakeholders in the education system. Welcome to study session 1. This is the first class ever. Here, we are going to discuss the meaning and types of educational costs. As we all know, that the education system is an integral component of the larger economy. This system competes for the same resources with other sectors. That is, like agricultural sector, the transport sector, the banking sector, and even the health sector. As a result of this, the major determinant of budgetary allocation to education must be properly understood. On this premise, it becomes very important that you understand the meaning of educational costs and the various types of costs that you will come across in this course. The knowledge of this concept will give you a proper understanding of the course itself. What are you expected to achieve at the end of this study session? By the end of this study session, you should be able to, 1, define costs and educational costs. 2, you should be able to explain at least any 5 types of costs in the education system. And 3, you should be able to state any 5 determinants of educational costs. Let us begin proper. We start with the meaning of cost. Erroneously, some people tend to use the word cost and expenditure interchangeably as if they mean the same thing. However, they do not mean the same thing. For example, why the accountants restrict themselves to price of a commodity as the meaning of cost, economists go beyond that. To an economist, cost is price plus something else. So in a clear term, what is cost? Cost is the amount of money, time, and other materials, including the alternative for God, that are expended to acquire an item or to enjoy a service. If we adopt this definition in describing educational cost, we can now say that educational cost is the aggregate value of the resources a consumer or provider of education has to give up in order to acquire or provide education. In this case, the consumers of education will be the parents or the student or learner, as the case may be, while the producer will be the institution, the government, as well as the individual. So in this case now, we are saying that educational cost consists of 2 components, the money cost and the real cost. While the money cost will be the cost of all the items that are used in the education system, the real cost, simply described, is the alternative for God. Let's go to the type of cost. Basically, there are 3 major types of costs. in relation to the three major decision makers in the education system. In this case, we have the institutional costs, the private costs, as well as the social costs. Let us start with the first one, institutional costs. Institutional costs are the costs incurred by the educational institution in the process of providing education for learners. The costs that are borne by the educational institution in the course of providing education for the learners. And these costs can be divided into two. We have the capital cost and the recurrent cost. The capital cost will be the costs that are spent or that are incurred on durable items such as building, heavy machines, furniture, and so on and so forth. While recurrent costs are the costs that are incurred on items that recur on daily basis, weekly, or even monthly basis. And this includes salary, cost of electricity, cost of fueling the generating set, cost of fueling the vehicles, and so on and so forth. Then we move to the second type, private costs. Private costs can also be known as individual costs. Private costs can also be referred to as individual costs. Individual costs of education refer to all the expenses incurred by a learner or his parent or members of his family in the process of acquiring education. This is in addition to the opportunity cost. And when we look at the two components of cost, as we have mentioned before, the monetary component and the real cost. The monetary component in private cost will now mean the cost on textbooks, the cost on transportation, the cost on uniform, the cost on feeding, and other items like that. While the opportunity cost will be the income that student is foregoing as a result of being in school. Then we go to the third type of cost, that is the social cost. The social cost is the cost that is borne by the society, which is represented by the government. In the bid of providing education for the citizen, the government also incurs some costs, especially if the government takes it upon itself to run a free education system, as we have in the Universal Basic Education Program that is being run in Nigeria. So the cost that government is incurring in providing services, in paying salaries, and even the alternative for God, because the student in school, if they are not in school, they're supposed to be working and pay taxes to the government. The taxes that government is losing because those students are in school form the components of the alternative for God. So the money the government is spending on building, on salary and other items like that, plus the taxes they forgo because the students are not working, somehow to give us the social cost. We have other types of costs, though these are other categorizations. We have imputed costs. Yes, what do we mean by imputed cost? This is the cost of property or facility that someone uses to run his own business. For example, as a school owner, if you use your own building to house your student, to run your school, the cost of rent that you're supposed to pay is what we call imputed costs. Someone may decide to put a small shop in front of his house. He may forget that he needs to earmark some amount of money as rent for that shop. In that case, that money that's supposed to serve as rent is what we call imputed costs. On many occasions, this type of cost is usually not captured by the accounting document of the organization or the institution. We have hidden cost. Hidden cost is the cost that is not easily discerned by the beneficiary or the provider of education. Why do we call it hidden? It is hidden because sometimes we will overlook this cost. Let me give an example. Supposing when you are coming to school to receive lecture in the university, you met a friend of yours in the bus, and you have to pay his transport fare and even buy a bottle of water for this friend. If you are asked to calculate the cost of obtaining that level of education, you may not remember to include that in the calculation of the cost. That is why it is called hidden cost. We have other costs like total cost, average cost, fixed cost, variable cost, marginal cost, and so on and so forth. Detail of these are contained in your module. What are the determinants of educational costs? Well, there are so many of them, but let us see how far we can go in mentioning and explaining these determinants. The first one is staff salary. When we talk of staff salary, we are talking of income that accrue to the personnel of the institution on monthly basis. And as we all know that education system is still labor intensive, that is, we need more of manual labor than machine. Staff salary dominates the cost in the education system. So the higher the number of personnel, the greater the amount of salary they will receive, and the higher the cost of education. We have other non-staff recurrent expenditure, such as the cost on electricity bill, refuse disposal, cost of fueling, maintenance, and so on and so forth. We also have capital cost. Capital cost is the cost on durable items. And we have demand for education as also one of the determinants of educational cost. And when we talk of demand for education, we are talking of the desire by everybody, including the government, to acquire education. This desire is increasing because both the government and individual have realized the power of education for upward socio-economic mobility. And as such, the demand for education is increasing. And as this increase, there is a direct relationship between demand for education and the cost of education. So, ladies and gentlemen, what have you learned today in this class? You will recall we define cost as what is given up in order to acquire an item. And we divided what is given up into two. We have the money aspect and we have the real cost, which is the opportunity cost. We also define educational cost as the time and other resources that are given up plus the alternative forgone to acquire education. Then we also talk about the various types of educational costs. You remember I mentioned institutional costs, private costs, and social costs. And we also talk about the various determinants of educational costs. You remember we talk about staff salary, we talk about non-staff salary, we talk about capital costs, we also talk about demand for education. Ladies and gentlemen, we have discussed in detail the meaning and the types of educational costs in this study section. Go back to your study module. Read all these extensively. Do well to answer the in-test questions in order for you to ascertain your level of mastery of these concepts. It is on this note, I want to say you are all welcome. Thank you for listening, and bye for now. See you in the next class. Bye.